Probably another one I need around here
I
somewhere.
don't know how you can read.
That one.
That's all his writing, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know how you read it.
It's terrible. All right, you ready?
Yeah.
Welcome to Career Paths by Infonet. I'm your host, Ryan King. Victor is actually out ill this week, so I'll be handling everything without him. No big deal. It's not like he's here any other time anyways. So, we are doing part 2 with Greg Powell, right?
That sounds right to me.
Yeah. Who works for the City of Spokane Water Department. So, I don't think either of us really remember quite where we left off, so we'll just kind of buzz through and touch on everything that we normally ask, all the questions, and kind of, get us caught back up to speed.
That sounds good.
So, married, kids,
Yeah,
grandkids.
I'm married. My wife and I have been married almost, coming up, actually tomorrow, 37 years.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. I have one daughter, Annie is her name, and she's been married now for a couple of years, but just finishing up college. She's going to Eastern, so we're excited about that. She's been kind of in and out, and COVID hasn't helped that process, but looks like we're on the back stretch. So that's exciting. And
what is she going to college for?
She's actually going into graphic design.
Oh.
So.
Well, that's right. I think
more on that, on the computer side of it as opposed to the starving artist side.
Yeah.
But she's she's very strong in I think she has a great eye for all of that. But she's always enjoyed painting, always been very good at capturing, whereas Dad is more stick people and
that's I have trouble with the stick people.
Yeah.
In fact, people are like, "Why'd you make him handicapped?" I'm like, he's not supposed to be.
Yeah, so that's definitely whenever we need help in any way, as far as I don't know, posters and just all of that kind of stuff. She's our go-to for that.
See, I got a brother. He's a graphic designer, and it's nice having one in the family. I mean, that's where our logo came from. He does screen printing.
Oh, I didn't know
He's done a bunch of stuff for us. He's done all my business cards over the years from all my past businesses, and
that's great.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then family does a haunted house every year, and he does all the graphic stuff for a lot of that. And my oldest brother, he's quite artistic too. I don't, somehow it skipped me completely when it comes to the drawing part of it, I guess. I mean, I can make you anything out of wood, but I can't draw it first. It's like if I can't picture it here, I can't get it into my hand, build it into my hands. But
have you ever done much or any drafting?
Not
three-dimensional,
really, no. Very little.
Yeah, that you might be surprised. You might be good at that.
I might
because
be.
of being able to use your hands. It's just getting that dimension on paper. Of course, now, I mean, so much of it's already built into the. You just buy a program, which is.
Yeah, no kidding. So, you work for the City of Spokane Water Department.
Right.
So, how did you end up there?
Well, I've been with the city for a number of years. Started out with them. My background is basically been in construction. I went a couple of years. Went to Spokane Falls Community College, and got my AA degree out there years ago. But got to a point where I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and as you progress through that, you kind of need to have know where you're going to, what you're going to do as far as classes, so you can direct it.
Yeah.
Instead of wasting too much time in school. And I really didn't know what I wanted to do, so I had some contacts through my dad. My dad's a retired builder, and got into the electrical trade. Really I feel it was fortunate, because, and over the years I didn't realize how nice it would be to have something to fall back onto, whatever that meant. So kind of ran that over the years, kind of ran through the course of becoming an apprentice and learning the trade. And I got out of the trade for a while, for about 5 years. Got into sales, actually got into the financial end of things. Sold securities, and just had the opportunity. It presented itself. Didn't know if I'd like it, but got into it and learned a lot. But I got into it thinking, well, I had done electrical work for 6 or 7 years before getting into sales. And I thought, well, if I hate it, I'll go back out in the field and do that. And that's kind of what I ended up doing. But it was at a time here in Spokane where the economy was really kind of tough, and my wife was finishing up college, and we decided to move to Seattle because it was kind of tough. She was having a hard time finding work here. So, and that's, those of us that have grown up in Spokane or been here any length of time, has had its highs and lows, but not crazy.
Yeah.
But at the time, it was just very difficult. We thought it would be, kind of adventurous, and so we ended up going over there, and ended up being in this Everett area for about 5 years, which was longer than we thought we were going to be over there. But so I went to work for a couple of different electrical companies over the course of that 5-year period over there, and she got a job with I think it was with C First at the time, C First Bank, and so that got us started. But we had some property over here, and we ended up coming back over here and building on the property. And at that point, I started my own electrical shop.
And she was able to just transfer?
Yeah.
Or did she have to?
Yeah, you're making me think back now. Ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
Nice.
She was able to transition over here, and in that course, there were a couple of job positions that weren't her favorite. But that was just kind of the way, to get back into this market. That's kind of the way it had to be done. So we jumped into it, and actually we built a home, and within that time frame, my daughter's actually adopted. So we ended up adopting in that time frame too. So there was kind of a lot of things happening once we got back over here. And so I had my own electrical business for 10 years, 11 years, something like that. And this is kind of a long way into working for the city, but I then kind of had the opportunity. Actually, it was kind of a funny deal. I had one of my inspectors with the city I bumped into him at Home Depot, or actually he came up to me and said, "Hey, did you know they're hiring for an electrical inspector with the city?" I said, "Well, no, I haven't really been looking for that." And he said, "You ought to apply." Which I took as a compliment.
Yeah.
I mean, in the trades, inspectors are, it's kind of a love-hate relationship, because if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, it's a great relationship.
Yeah.
If you're constantly kind of being adversarial in doing something you think is right, but you're not really going back to your code book and actually looking at it, then it can be doesn't work as well for you.
Yeah.
But so I thought, well, I went home and told my wife, and she said, well, and she was used to, when you're running your own business, I had, at the time, I had some cell towers I was wiring. I was all over didn't go that far, but I was Idaho, Montana, and Spokane area. So she was more inclined to say, hey, will you be in town?
Yeah.
I said, well, yeah, if I got the job, yeah, I would be here. And so she kind of nudged me a little bit. She liked the idea of having me stick around,
and their hours are a little better too.
Yeah, and
they cut out.
Yeah, and as I found
on time.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, you could plan things, and particularly for us, starting a family, that was, I had to admit, that was appealing.
Yeah.
So I jumped into it, and you never know what's going to happen with that whole process. There's you go through civil service, which is a kind of a whole different department of the city that I didn't understand all this. It took years to kind of figure out how all of these different systems work. All I knew was that they were going to take 9 people and interview them, and I got into I don't know how many people they interviewed for the positions, but I got into the first run, and thought the interview went well, and there's some testing through civil service, which is kind of a whole nother topic, but got a phone call back from them saying, well, we enjoyed having you for the interview, but at this time it's not gonna work out. We went with another candidate, so kind of put it on the shelf, and we kind of agreed, well, that's it's worth a shot,
Yeah.
not knowing that in that system, if you get to where you have an interview and you've gone through the testing with civil service to just kind of make a determination whether you're going to be even material for working for the city, I didn't know that you stay in that on the list for a couple of years. So you're active. But the supervisor that called me back and just to let me know what was going on, said he kind of left it that we are going to have a couple guys retiring in the next 6 months. So don't, you got another shot at it, basically. And it's like, okay, well, does that really mean anything, right?
Yeah.
So long story short, I did get a call out of the blue about 6 months later, and basically they said, hey, would you still like to work for us? I said, yeah, absolutely. So so that's how I got in, and really never have regretted it since then. And that's been almost 18 years ago.
So how come you're not a electrical inspector now?
So during that course, we had a couple of bumps. Our department had some challenges along the way about 2010, and I don't know if you remember, that was an economic downturn even for conservative little Spokane then. 2008 was really when things kind of got crunched.
Yeah.
But apparently our department got a little top heavy in the amount of inspectors we had, and they actually laid off 6 of us, which was not a fun time, because we kind of saw as a group, and I think there's I think we're talking about 16 or 18 people, inspectors, and that's plumbing, mechanical, electrical, building, elevator, what else? Anyway, that was kind of a tough time. But for those of us that got laid off, the city did work hard to, if we wanted to get placed somewhere else within the city. And the way the system is set up is if you do that, you're willing to demote dollar-wise, income-wise, and basically each job has a classification number. So you do that to keep everything else going, your retirement and your pension, your whole system. And I opted to do that. So I had, over a 2-year period, I actually went to work part of the time for solid waste, garbage, and then I actually was able to get promoted into position, they call it building engineer, which was managing City Hall. So that guy retired, and so I was the guy handling, basically heating. It was within my scope of knowledge. I mean, heating and cooling, electrical in the building, and all of that, plus managing, custodians and people. You got 400 people in City Hall at the time. So, but I stuck with it because I knew that I had, other guys I worked with, I knew were going to be retiring within that time frame. So, and the economy was picking up. So I say all that to say, I mean, this is my pathway even within the city. It hasn't been perfect.
Yeah.
But in doing that, if you do that and you see someplace you want to be, want to stay. I mean, if I didn't have any hope of, and these were not, these were not horrible positions. They just weren't what I signed up for originally. So I got in because of my experience in electrical, and actually each electrical inspector is, you have a mechanical inspector position you're responsible for too. So as a building inspector, you're a building inspector and plumbing inspector, and then there's some other certification that the city requires you to do to be fully up to speed. But each of you have your combination inspectors. So so in doing that, I ended up getting back 2012 or so back into my original position. So everything was the same for until last year, and there was a certification situation that came up with the state. Maybe you and I were having an off-camera discussion about a friend, and maybe it was something similar to that. But so once again, I was faced with, even though I had all that experience in that position, this was a situation where the state, to my best understanding, the state had the upper position in saying, no, as even the city has to, follow these rules. Now, I don't know if that's something that changed over the years, but I was put in a position where I couldn't test or do anything to maintain that particular position. So as time goes on, there might be another, if I wanted to go back into that department, there might be some opportunity there, who knows. But at this point, I'm kind of getting into a time frame of how long do I want to work for the city. I mean, as far as retirement and so forth.
Yeah.
But so all that said, and I wouldn't have met Victor if I. That's kind of the interesting thing about it is it's you have this. There are other things within the structure. COVID kind of I had some concern there because it really threw a wrench. Normally there's just movement of people retiring and that kind of things where you'd have, and it was kind of, I was real close to not coming back to the city. I mean, just by choice, because but on the other hand, I'd been down that road before. I knew how this works. It's all, a lot of mental, and it's the type of thing where you can get all bent out of shape and say, well, this is once again not what I signed up for. But things change. Things, like I say, there's always movement of some kind. So, so that's how I got into the water department. And this has been a whole another part of the city. And it's interesting because each department, we all, not in Union 270, you have guidelines and rules, but even there's little variations of how those rules are viewed. You have you got the book,
yeah,
but there's still different management styles and different things happening in each department. So it's interesting to see, and some things it's like, wow, I really like how you do things on that side of it. Other things, not so much.
Right.
But it's still been a very, very great experience working for the city, and I've enjoyed it. So, and there's been a lot of stability there, so that plays into it.
You mentioned retirement. Do you have to put in so many years or anything to get like full retirement or anything like that? You're also with the union, you said?
Yeah. Yeah, and there's I'm in Union 270. There's also a guild. There's there's managers. I'm trying to remember some of the names, but not, if you go to work for the city, you may or may not be in that union. Our police officers are in a different union. M&P is what I was trying to remember. So that's a little different setup. It's a guild instead of a union, so it operates a little differently. But they have a president, just like our union has a president. And as far as and then you have people that are just at will, that serve at the pleasure of the mayor. So that's another arena, and those are, for the most part, those are going to be department heads and management people. But they don't have that security behind them. They can be fired for the color of, or a bad look that they give. I mean, it's not quite that bad, but so they're kind of in a separate entity. As far as requirement, no, that as soon as you start, the only requirements are whatever, like in the case of the union, because that's what I'm most familiar with. The day you start being full-time, which is, that's of course a lot different than working part-time. We call those temp seasonals. But a lot of people that are temp seasonal work their way into a permanent job. It's kind of, get to see, it gives the city a chance to be prudent in how they're spending their money, but also gives them a chance to see, if it's going to work out or not. I can think of some apprenticeship situations I was in as an electrician that would have been kind of nice to, not for me, but for the company I was working for. Do I really want to be staying here?
Yeah.
But it's both ways. So other than that, you have to go through a year probation. Again, just talking about the union situation, and once you do that, then you're pretty secure. So that doesn't mean there aren't certain circumstances that you could lose your job, but it's a lot more. It's way different than being a temporary.
So do you have to be there so many years to become fully vested? And
you do. They changed that a little bit. It used to be 5 years, now it's 7.
Okay.
And actually, there's a whole kind of it depends on your age. That was when I started. That was pretty basic. It was just 5 years, you're vested. So whatever pension you have, you can take it with you. If you're 5 years and a day, and you get an offer in the private sector, then you're done, and you take that with you, among other benefits too. But now it's 7 years, basically. But there's also there's 4 or 5 different situations. They've had to kind of restructure that to maintain, for the pension, to maintain a good. Our pension is funded, and that had no. And this is. I'm glad that you brought this up, because you hear these horror stories around the country of pension. Somebody took the pension. A group of people that are, city council people or something, and the money's gone. All that money that these people put into the pension, somehow they got a hold of it. Well, those usually are, as far as I know, unfunded situations, and that doesn't guarantee the performance of your pension as far as what it's paying out. But that's a huge positive for a pension fund, is to have it funded.
Yeah.
So it's not. It's always, the pot's always full, and then there might be, over time you might have a little drawdown in performance, but that's a real plus for our city situation anyway, and for Union 270.
So now you're with the water department. So what's a typical day like for you? Hours, tasks?
Yeah, we start pretty early. Start at 6:30. We work 6:30 to 4, and in my group, we have 2 equipment operators. I'm one of 2 that do that, which means that I'm operating basically anything that's motorized, that have some responsibility there for not driving things off of cliffs. But we, most of our equipment is, we have riding lawnmowers, we have tractors for snow removal and that type of thing. For what I'm doing right now, I'm not required to have any special licensing for the size of equipment that I'm operating. But as you progress into different areas of the water department, you're required to have your commercial license for larger vehicles and all that.
Yeah.
So, so typical day is this right now. We have a little under 1,000 acres. I think I might have mentioned this last time, but it's 900 and some acres of water sewer department property that we maintain, and that's in the form of keeping grass mowed, watered. We have irrigation specialists that handle that, and weeding, herb control, and now the challenge has been with trying to conserve water, trying to keep a balance of nice looking grass.
Yeah.
That's kind of a new thing this year. That's just part of where we're at on the governmental side. So I don't get involved with that much.
I don't blame you.
But basically, we're out in the field. For the most part, we have a main shop that we work out of, and we're a lot of it is maintaining the equipment that we have, and making sure that stuff is safe, making sure that the guys that we have a fairly good sized crew that are temporary help. So right now it's lawn mowing, it's weeding, it's there's a certain amount of, I don't want to say customer service to it, but we're pretty, since we're out in neighborhoods and everything, we're pretty visual. It's kind of nice. You get to know you know, good or bad, but people are funny. They just, we had a comment from somebody in the public here this week that they thought that the grass was too green.
Too green. Wow.
I don't know why that would be, but I think it was, this person was, thinking that you would expect lighter colored grass if we're going to try and save water, which it's kind of a mix right now, of some of it's fairly dry and some of it isn't. And we have some challenges with, trying to get our work done with some of the homeless folks out there. We have to get to where we need to be to take care of stuff, and not that it's real confrontational, but there's a balance there somewhere.
Yeah,
we got to get things done in a timely fashion, and they like to kind of stay in certain spots longer than other places, so that's just part of the deal.
Yeah. So what do you dislike the most, and what do you enjoy the most about your career?
About my career?
Yes.
Or are you asking about my career or where I'm at right now?
Where you're at right now.
I don't know that I can't say there's really anything I dislike, which is pretty amazing. I mean, from where I'm at right now. But obviously I'm in a full-time position, so I'm weather can be frustrating sometimes, but I can't really think of anything, honestly. I mean, the hours
That's
are pretty good.
Yeah.
We actually work, this is one of the reasons, there were a number of reasons, but for me choosing to go into this department is they work what we call a 980, which is 9 hours on, and then you have every other Friday off, and then you have you have an 8-hour day within that 2-week period to give you 80 hours. But that's the schedule I had as an inspector. So it kind of spoils you.
Yeah.
The nice thing about this department is that the Friday that we're off, we're all off. So you're not covering or filling in for somebody and coming in Monday and going, hey, what happened? We're just not there.
Yeah.
So that's kind of nice. I mean, it's not in the back of your mind that, I should have been there today,
Yeah. Right.
But so that the schedule itself helps a lot. Not complaining about any little, part of the job that is. But no, it's pretty. The city has got. We're set up with the equipment that we need. The city's good about repairing things. Sometimes we have to show that we need it maybe a little stronger than somebody up the line thinks we need it, but there's good discussion about that, and there's good communication. That's always been a huge thing for me over the years where I work, is I've always sought out, and I never really analyzed it until I was older, but I've always worked even for electrical shops. It's always been a smaller, not always, but I've been happiest at smaller shops where the line of communication was good or bad, just good communication.
Yeah.
So that you don't have this, well, the customer, you're disconnected from, even right down to going to somebody's home and replacing an outlet. I mean, that can get, in a big company, that could get really messed up. I mean, it sounds crazy, but it's real simple at the same time. You do what you're supposed to do, and if something's wrong between the customer and the vendor, you take care of it, and you get that satisfaction. Whereas through a bigger outfit, somebody told somebody that this, so that is something within the city that I've always enjoyed, on the, looking at, not trying to think of what I haven't enjoyed. The frustrating part over my career at the city has been these little points of time when I am doing something, but that was by choice. That was not, I didn't have to stay with the city.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that also has helped me grow. And I'm growing right now, just in meeting different people, seeing different management styles. It's just a constant growing thing. So, and I'm sure that I look at it differently now than if I was just coming into the city, because a lot of these guys I'm working with now are a lot younger than me, and
right.
I'm not intimidated by that, but just you see the thought processes are different, and they
Way
are
different.
when you're young. They are different. I want the money now.
Yeah.
Well, okay, here's what you need to do. And I understand that.
I know from my experiences too, you get a younger crowd coming in, and they think they have all these great ideas. Well, we should be doing it this way and that way and stuff, and it's like, you do realize that it's been tried.
Yeah.
We're not dumb and just never thought that, oh, hey, we should try that way sometime.
Right.
It's been tried. It doesn't, there's a reason we do it the way we do it.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that the way things are done now, everything's perfect,
Yeah. Yeah.
into perfection or anything.
Right.
But, there's so many times where I've seen it where it's like.
And on the other hand, though, I think that should be commended, that when you have, because I've had employees and had to hire and fire people, and it should always be commended whether you go with that particular idea or not. They're thinking.
Yeah.
And at least you want to have employees that are thinking, hopefully, but not everybody is thinks on those same lines. So unless they're just trying to put a feather in their own cap, which that's a whole different category.
Yeah.
that poses other challenges. But no, I think it's good to. I'm kind of laughing because I'm thinking of how many times I've heard that working for the city, and it's just the attrition of seeing somebody come in, maybe as a new inspector who has that experience of installation, and now you've got to take that and apply it as best you can to communicating with the public, and hopefully you in that job position you can do it in a way that it's kind of a team effort for people, but it's hard to do.
Yeah.
And people are, we're living in challenging times. I mean, people have all kinds of things going on in their lives right now.
Yeah.
And so you throw that into trying to get, get things that you need to have as a someone who's trying to apply the rules that are written down. It can be challenging. But doing what I'm doing right now is, I think what I probably enjoy most about it is being out there in the field.
Mm-hmm.
I recognized that early in my career back in an office position in sales, that and you have different things. Once again, you have different things that you enjoy. In the wintertime, being in a warm office.
Yeah.
As opposed to fighting all the elements.
Yeah.
I told a guy last fall, he was complaining, a young guy we had working in our group that was, I think he's going to school. It was a temporary job, but I kind of was joking with him, but he didn't. I'm not sure he understood me, but he said, man, it's cold today. I don't know how we're gonna do this. It's so cold, and it was, we're removing snow all over the city, and And I said, cold is when your hands don't work. This is not cold. And I was serious. And he looked at me like, oh, what planet did you come from, But I still have some jobs I drive by, and I still feel the cold. But that's just, I'm not complaining. It's just, he just hasn't had anything to compare to.
Yeah.
And okay, if the news channel is telling you every 2 minutes on your phone, it's cold, you're going to die, you kind of tend to believe it, right?
Right.
And so to him it was cold. Okay.
Yeah. What would you say the biggest misconception that the general public has about your position?
Misconception. That's a good question. I would say there is a general feeling that city employees are not as motivated as others. Can I put it that way?
You can, yeah.
And I would tend to disagree with that. It's a wide spectrum, and that's what's kind of neat about the city as an employee is you kind of bring your experience. I don't really. I mean, there are jobs within the city that you still have to have some experience, to match up through civil service your prospective job position. And so it's not like you just come to the city, oh, hey, yeah, here's a body, No, there's more to it than that.
Yeah.
And so, but I do think that perception is still out there that, oh, yeah,
well, I do think, I know that perception is out there.
Yeah.
But I do also know that when it comes to so many different jobs, that perception's there too, because people only see that person for, maybe half an hour out of their entire career.
Right.
And they're like, all he did was stand around and do nothing all day long. And it's like,
right.
For a half an hour he stood around and did nothing.
Right.
What'd he do for the other, 8 hours that he worked?
Right.
It's like,
well, yeah, and I had to, one of my requirements for this position is going through a basic, they call it flagger class. It's for coordinating traffic, yeah, I think I need that. I've never done that, but the city requires it because we're out there. One of the things we do in our department is we have one man that is going out and sawing parts of cement and asphalt streets for repairs or just different things. And a lot of times in these busy some areas it's going to be pretty simple, pretty straightforward, as simple as having some cones set up around his truck. Other times you've got to coordinate. You're going to have traffic that even if you're there at 2 a.m, you've got to have a flagger or flaggers to make sure you've got that safety. The city's got some responsibility, some liability there.
Yeah.
And people don't get to see that. They're at home sleeping.
Yeah.
So, but in those cases, I just bring this up because you're talking about, a half hour they were just standing there. There might not be too much to do viewing them, but there's quite a bit that goes into thinking about how you've got set up, and now you're going to have to change this position. You're going to be dealing with a whole different direction because now we've got to cut over here. There's things to it that, and probably the street department gets a lot more involved with that than we do. But that's just an example of, why do you have 3 guys out there doing that? Well, this is what you're doing right now. This is not what I'm going to be doing in the next hour. I'm going to be somewhere else, and I might not even be doing this.
Right.
I might be digging a trench somewhere, or helping with. There's just all kinds of things going on. So it's not really a fair statement.
I know when I was running dump truck, we did got subcontracted by Garco a lot, and Garco does a lot with the city, and you know, does some of the street work and stuff too, even. And, you know, there was a couple jobs I was on where, you know, our start time was like 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And you sit there till 2 in the morning doing absolutely nothing. But they weren't sure when go time was going to be. You know, they were trying to get to a certain point, and once that happens, and then, you know, I'm nonstop hustling.
Yeah.
Until the job is done.
It's kind of the nature, you know, of what you're doing. But
yeah, but you know, if someone drove by, they're like, they got 4 trucks sitting there doing absolutely nothing all night long, and it's like, well, it wasn't all night, but
right.
You know,
right.
For those few hours it sure felt like all night.
Sure. I tell it seemed like the first week or 2 weeks that I started inspecting years ago, I had some of the toughest customers and to this day I never had, just like 3 or 4 people that were just kind of ornery, homeowners, and I think the first week I went out to do a real basic, simple inspection for a homeowner, and I pull up and he was not even, I hadn't even walked into the house yet to look at the work he'd done, and he got in my face. He's about 5 inches from my face, and he says, "You know, I believe anybody could do what you do." And I said, I don't even know where I came up with this, but I said, "Oh, really? Well, then I guess we have a problem." And he said, "What's the problem?" And I said, "I'm the guy you have to deal with today, and there ain't nobody else coming out to look at this." And then he said, "I'm just messing with you." No, he wasn't.
Yeah.
He was, but you know, and I wasn't trying to be a smart aleck. I'm just letting him know that, dude. First of all, I have to look at it, and then you can see if I'm going to have an attitude that maybe is not professional. And I've had inspectors over the years that were not very professional.
Yeah.
They may know what they're looking at, but the way they handled themselves was really poor. And so, you know, perception is what I'm talking about. The perception I gathered, I thought about that afterwards, was, okay, I'm from the city, here's some authority you really don't want at your house. I get it, no problem.
Mm-hmm.
But let's go look at it and see what you got. You know, I mean,
you know, I've been in the construction field for most of my life, and, you know, was like part of the time I was in Florida running a construction company, and we had to call for inspections all the time, and we call for a plumbing inspection on, you know, it was a final inspection for plumbing. The inspector comes in, he doesn't say a word to anyone, you know, he comes in, he looks around, and then he goes back out to his truck, and he's sitting out there doing his paperwork and stuff, and I'm like, okay, what's going on here? So I go out there and I'm like, so are you our plumbing inspector? He's like, yeah. I said, did we pass or fail? He goes, you failed. I said, can you tell me why? He goes, all right. And he takes me back inside to one of the sinks in the bathroom, and he's like, see that pipe, the drain pipe there? It's at the wrong angle. And I reached down and I was like, gave it a little tap, and it moved up a little bit. I said, is that better? He goes, okay, you pass. And I'm like, seriously? You were going to fail me over that? And it's like, and not even talk to me to tell me that you're failing me. You're just going to stamp it and drive away. But it's like, but then I got other inspectors that, you know, they got right in there and they're explaining everything that's going on.
Yeah, you probably got more information than you ever will need.
Yeah. You know, and it's like,
yeah,
wow.
there's quite a wide, you know, it's an interesting job.
Yeah.
It really is, because it just, you know, it puts, it allows you to be that, and you need a person in between that written word and the customer. You need that.
Yeah.
Because, and that's a good power to have, you know, unless you don't know how to handle that authority well. And there's that's a hard thing to train
Mm-hmm.
somebody to do. But the best part of what you just said was the sigh when you asked him what.
Yeah.
Now I got to get out of my truck
Yeah.
and actually go in again. Yeah, no, and he was required one way or another. He was required either now with computer. It's the code says you have to actually give the code that you are referring to. I mean, he had to leave something physically or an email or something.
And
But yeah,
I'm guessing he was in his truck writing it up to give to me or something. But I
Could
just,
be.
I'm not a patient guy for one.
Yeah. What
When
part
I
of
see you
Florida,
leave,
what part of Florida was that?
he was in Orlando, so he was Orange County inspector.
Big county.
Yeah, and just north of that was Seminole County, and those guys, I'd take those inspectors all day long, every day.
Oh,
Some of the best inspectors I've ever
is
dealt
that
with.
right?
Yeah, all of them. I don't think I ever had a single bad one.
Where would be the line? Would that be above Daytona Beach or?
Further
Or
east.
Well, you couldn't be further east than Daytona Beach.
Or west, I mean,
You'd be
sorry,
out in the
west.
water.
Further west.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. I don't have any real connections down there other than just, when we've gone on vacation down there. You can't help, as an inspector, you can't help but look at stuff,
Yeah.
Yeah, but those, that could be a whole nother show if you ever wanted to. And I have so many interesting stories, but it's just, people, and it's all about safety. It's kind of interesting, all these different rules that we have to, and they're constantly changing.
Yeah, which on some aspects, you sit there and you're like, we haven't figured it out yet. We're going for safety, and
Right.
the house hasn't changed really.
Right.
But yet codes keep changing. It's like, what? Why?
Well, I'll tell you, not to belabor the point, but there's a lot of people involved in code making. There's manufacturers, installers, legislative people, insurance companies. There's just a lot of input. You have all these different committees. So there's a start for a complex, non-answer.
Yeah.
And so there's just a lot that goes into it, and but as an installer, you look and go, well, that's stupid. Well, it might be to you because it means it's more of a hassle, or now you got to, it's going to cost the customer more. But if you're serious about your business, and that part does help. The more you know your code as an installer, in general, the more professional you're going to be, because you should be able to explain it to your customer. You shouldn't, and this is just my opinion, but a good tradesman should be able to explain why doing it this way is important to the customer, not just that's the way the inspector wants it.
Yeah.
Now that's kind of putting it back to the inspector as a jerk, or it's his opinion, or her opinion. Don't want to leave you gals out.
That's right.
There's some great gal inspectors out there. They have an eye for detail. They can just almost feel it when they walk in there.
Well, many of them are used to catching guys lying. So when they walk in and they just look at the guy, and the guy's like, looking down at the ground,
right.
Like he's lying.
Yeah,
right.
they know all the
What do I
signs,
have to
don't they?
catch?
Yeah, that's so true. But it's just it makes you, the more you know what the thought processes were in forming this code, or maybe why it changed. GFIs that we have all over the place now. That's been along for I don't know, probably when I first started in the trade, GFIs were just required at swimming pools.
Yeah.
That was it. But then, and this is all, you can chart it out and see the lives that it has saved. And Doesn't mean you can't get a good shock, but it's designed so that the type of shock generally won't kill you.
Right.
It's going to trip out ahead of your. It's all about the resistance in your body and stuff. But how do you argue with something that saves lives? It's going to get in It's going to get in there.
Yeah.
So, but as time goes on, and with computers, I mean, a lot of people don't realize that these little AFI breakers now, either in a device form or the breaker itself, that actually it's actually like a little computer in there, because it's an oscilloscope. It reads the sine wave of the current, and the technology has been around for a long time, but couldn't get it that small. So that's why you pay a little more, and they're not perfect, but just like GFIs when they first came out, they were inconvenient because they were tripping when, for some reason. But then they get that information back to the manufacturers, and they keep working on this stuff.
Yeah.
So.
All right. So last question: what did you want to be as a kid? Did you want to be a cowboy, astronaut, a doctor, rock star?
I went through a phase where I thought I wanted to be a film editor.
Really?
Yeah, we had and I couldn't even tell you why today. Maybe because it had to do with film, but there was something, we had something in junior high, all these little categories, and we had to come up with a report, and that, for some reason, that just sounded good to me, but that was not a goal. I think I never have had a specific goal. I have, on a personal level, I've always wanted to, be a good father, good wife, a good husband. Got a great wife. Great wives make great husbands, or at least that's the way it should be. And I'm very fortunate. But that was. My folks had a great marriage, and that was, that was the building block for whatever I ended up doing. But I think probably, the whole electrical thing just kind of intrigued me in getting out of college, because when I got into it, I couldn't believe I was getting paid to do it. I mean, I enjoyed it that much.
Yeah.
And so, and then as you go along, you kind of go, I don't know, maybe there's some, you go through these in the 20s especially.
I do know.
Yeah, maybe, but but it's good. You try, maybe, and like I said, that was a good experience for me. And I learned a lot about the financial side of things in the world, and how things, when people sell things, it's not always true.
Yeah.
So I learned how to, try to do some of my own investigating, and that electricians are basically curious people. I mean, I think they're, by nature, they're kind of mechanical. You're thinking of problem solvers. That it leans. I think all of the trades kind of, if you're good at that, if you like problem solving, any of the trades are probably, would be of interest to a person, I think.
Yeah.
Kind of, you get into puzzles, trying to figure out why did this do that, and that's what makes good tradespeople, I think. So,
I agree. Yeah.
Whatever it is, water, electricity, wood.
Combination of the two.
Yeah.
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 Why is there water in my electricity?
Yeah. Should there be electricity in my water?
Well, thank you, Greg. Appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching and listening to Career Paths by Infonet. Please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Remember, it's your life. Make it happen.